Welcome to Channel 233 News. I am Mackenzie. On today's show, we are discussing racial diversity in children's literature. We're going to explore the feminist point of view, racial stereotypes, and historical context. In all of our following segments, we reference the book Yesterday I Had the Blues by Jerron Ashford Frank, illustrated by R. Gregory Christie. It is a work of children's literature with a simple plot that follows a young boy through the emotions of everyday life through colors and blues-like language. At the resolution, the protagonist becomes content when the theme of the book becomes clear. Our emotions change, but family is forever. Now to Angie, discussing the feminist point of view.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Today I spoke with guests Mulan and her father Fazu. Here's how it went. Today we have two special guests with us, Mulan and her father Fazu. Fazu, why has Mulan disappointed you?
Well, she spoke out of term, and women do not speak when they're not spoken to. Right, Mulan? And she also cannot fight for our family. Right, Mulan?
Mulan, how do you feel about what your father has just said?
I feel really sad because I think that I should have equal rights as a son should have. I hope that someday I can make my father proud.
The two books I chose to compare were Yesterday I Had the Blues and Mulan. I chose to focus on the feminist point of view and how some of the texts and illustrations are depicted. What we've learned is that regardless of the race depicted, both books portrayed the same gender stereotypes. In the Hints and Tribunella book, they say that, quote, the sex and gender system refers to the set of arrangements by which a society transforms biological sexuality into products of human activity. In Mulan, it's about a girl who disappoints her father by speaking out of turn and not being able to fight for her family. In this book, the illustrations they use were the soft colors of pink, purple, light green, and bright blue when Mulan is known as a girl. Then when she goes undercover as a man, the illustrations get darker with their colors using dark blues, orange, browns, and blacks. In Yesterday I Had the Blues, the illustrations were pretty spot on with how stereotypical the colors were as they matched each stereotype. On the pages with boys or men talking, the colors were usually red, blue, and black. On the first girls page, which was 10 pages in, the girls are at ballet school with pink butterfly clips and glitter on their cheeks. This is a typical stereotype of girls in that they all like pink, glitter, and girly animals. The grandma is also in a yellow kitchen baking cookies. Society still sees women as the domesticated ones, when in reality, there are more working moms than before. I think that in these books, it relates to what Hints and Tribunella said about gender as performance and how colors are associated with genders. What we learn from this is that society needs to break down gender stereotypes in children's literature. We need to make it okay for a child to be comfortable reading any genre of books.
Thank you for that insight, Angie. Now to Anna, discussing stereotypes found in her selected works.
Thanks, Mackenzie. I decided to look into racial stereotypes portrayed through illustrations. In Little Black Sambo, illustrated by Helen Bannerman, racial stereotypes are highlighted through negative depictions. The plot itself seems innocent. A young boy goes into the jungle wearing nice clothes from his parents and uses his wits to convince 4 prideful tigers not to eat him. However, its educational value is directly contradicted by the work's illustrations, which insensitively portray the black characters in a very negative light. Black Mumbo, Little Black Sambo's mother, as seen right here, is illustrated barefoot with a pot in her hands and a blue cloth knotted over her head. This caricature closely represents the stereotype of Black Mammy, who popularized the view of black women as capable of housekeeping and caring for white children, but incapable as mothers. The protagonist, Little Black Sambo, is represented with extremely black skin that sharply contrasts his large white eyes and teeth. His hair is disheveled, his nose broad, his lips vibrantly red, and his mouth disproportionately huge. After further research of racial stereotypes, I found that Little Black Sambo parallels the pickaninny, a stereotypical caricature of black children. According to the Jim Crow Museum of Racist Memorabilia, the pickaninny was traditionally depicted as a dark-skinned, 8 to 10-year-old black child with bulging eyes, unkempt hair, red lips, and a wide mouth into which they stuffed huge slices of watermelon. Little Black Sambo fits all of these descriptions, especially when he eats 169 pancakes, showing similar gluttony to the watermelon. On the other hand, Yesterday I Had the Blues by Jerron Ashford Frame exaggerates black stereotypes as a celebration of black culture and heritage. The word choice used is that which is common in blues music, poetic-like language containing slang like "Mama says she got the reds" and "Monday morning." The expression of emotion as color and blues-like word choice work together to honor and celebrate the emotions and rhythms expressed as part of blues culture. Like the illustrations of Little Black Sambo, certain traits of the black characters are exaggerated. These traits include large noses, big mouths, white teeth, and long arms. This relates to the controversies of children's literature discussed in Chapter 10 of Hints and Tribunella text, authorship, ownership, and perspective. Because the authors and illustrators of Yesterday I Had the Blues are black, it gives them more credibility and right to represent the black characters, celebrating their features rather than being racist. Yesterday I Had the Blues and Little Black Sambo provide two polar representations of racial diversity. As picture books, the themes conveyed through the text are equally as important as that which is portrayed through the illustrations. With so many picture books available to elementary teachers, it is important to critically assess both the text and illustrational value to ensure that the materials presented are in the best interest of all of your students. Back to you, Mackenzie.
History is shown in Henry's Freedom Box through illustrations. The pictures show Henry Brown's journey from being born into slavery to freedom as a man. I feel that this book is a great way to introduce slavery to young children. It is hard for some teachers to talk about slavery and to talk about racial differences, and I feel that this book is a great way to get started. Historical context is shown in Yesterday I Had the Blues. This book describes a young boy's bad day and how he is down and has the blues. Ever wonder why that term is used to be sad, having the blues? This is because African Americans use blues music to describe their pain that they felt from losing a loved one, injustices, and it gave expression to the victory of outlasting a broken heart. When the term blues was used, it is to describe the music of African Americans back in the 1800s. The boy's blues that he felt in the book connects to his feelings, and when he says blues, it's because of the history of blues music that tells the story of African American sad times. I think this book is educational when it comes to learning colors and how to describe emotions. But for the historical context, I feel this book would be a great way to introduce music history. To conclude this segment, Yesterday I Had the Blues by Jerron Ashford Frame and Henry's Freedom Box by Ellen Levine both explore racial diversity through history in America using illustrations, storylines, and the authors. These books had similarities and differences. All the characters in each story were African American. Also, both the stories are based off of a particular time for African Americans in American history. The illustrations show two opposite approaches. One is realistic drawing and the other is cartoon-like. The storylines are both based off American history. Henry's Freedom Box was based on slavery in the South, and Yesterday I Had the Blues was based on blues music in the 1800s, also in the South. Both of the illustrators won awards for their drawings. I have confidence in using these books in my classroom one day. And now we'll have Danny's segment on social class.
Thank you, Mackenzie. In this portion, I will be talking about social class. Social class does not define who we are. Throughout history, we have been known to define one another based off of our possessions and rank in society. As children, rich or poor, The level of wealth or power over others is insignificant. The books I chose yesterday had The Blues by Jerome Ashford Frame and My Story by Hildy Calpurnia Rose by Dale Gottlieb display the ranks of social class through the use of culture and race, signifying the irrelevance of wealth and power. My Stories by Hildy Calpurnia Rose takes place in Brooklyn, New York, and embraces all walks of life as Hildy takes us on each fascinating character's journey, allowing us to love every single character for their quirky habits, regardless of how much money they may or may not have. Yesterday I Had the Blues shows us a young boy's life in color and expresses the value of love and family. This boy teaches us that nothing can be as important as family. As we explore these two powerful books, we're able to visualize the roles of each story and ultimately the roles that tie them together. In both books, each individual family are lower on the social class rank. Regardless of where they stand, this never hinders either of them from living a happy, grateful, and appreciative life. Culture and race play a huge role when it comes to social class. Many times these attributes correlate, which explains why there is an overwhelmingly greater amount of one race or culture lower on the social rank. According to Heinz and Tribunella, ethnicity is a relatively recent invention, and more importantly, race implies some of natural or essential differences between groups, ultimately signifying that we are creating and imposing segregation when we are essentially more alike than different. Hildy gives us a tour of every person she cares for. She shows us that each apartment has a unique story. When Hildy and her best friend Rose visit their favorite neighbor, Miss Adonia Frazier, they are surrounded by never-ending roses. Miss Frazier believes that you've got to laugh because that's how God knows how to find you. And if you laugh, nothing can bring you down. Even though Miss Frazier doesn't have much, she makes the best out of her favorite little roses and beautiful garden. Miss Frazier nor Hildy let the amount of money they have or didn't have affect how they live. The little boy from Yesterday I Had the Blues had the same exact attitude as Hildy and Miss Frazier. They were all living their lives in a beautiful color. Even when he had the blues, he remembered, that's okay, because together they've got something they'll never change. More importantly, they've got a family. That kind of family makes you feel like it's all golden. And then he was feeling himself. Ultimately, we learned that social class and happiness have no correlation whatsoever. However, race and culture may in fact have a connection to social class. Hildy, Miss Frazier, and this little boy never let this hinder them in any way.
Now to Anna, discussing Jerome Ashford Frame. To introduce